All right. Ready to work those mental muscles.
Oh, yeah.
Today we're diving deep into 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do
Okay.
by Amy Morin.
Cool.
She's a psychotherapist who
Mhm.
uses her own experiences and client work to kind of flip the script, on self-help.
Uh-huh.
Instead of focusing on what to do,
Right.
we're exploring the habits that might be holding us back.
Yeah, it's like shining a light on those sneaky mental weights.
Oh,
You
yeah.
might be dragging around without even realizing it. And what's interesting is that
Yeah.
Morin's insights are rooted
Ah.
in some pretty tough personal experiences, actually.
Oh, wow.
She lost both her mother and her husband within a short period of time.
Wow. Talk about turning hardship into helpful advice for others.
Right.
But before we get into these specific habits, how does Morin actually define mental strength?
Uh-huh.
Because it's not about being some kind of emotionless robot.
Right.
Right.
It's definitely not about suppressing your emotions. It's more about learning to regulate them. Mental strength is the ability to manage your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in a way that helps you stay positive and productive no matter what challenges you're facing.
So it's about being the captain of your own ship, even when the seas get stormy.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, some
Mhm.
people seem to just be
Yeah.
naturally better at handling rough waters than others.
Uh-huh.
Does that mean mental strength is something you're either born with or not?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
While things like genetics and personality certainly play a role,
Yeah.
mental strength is not set in stone.
Okay.
It's more like a muscle you can develop through practice and effort.
Oh, okay.
Think of it as a spectrum,
Yeah.
not an on-off switch.
Okay.
We all have different starting points.
Right.
And life experiences definitely shape our mental strength. But the good news is
Okay.
that we can all get stronger.
Okay. So that means even if you've faced setbacks or haven't always felt mentally strong?
Yeah. There's hope.
For sure.
You can actually build resilience over time.
Absolutely.
Now let's dive into the first habit Morin tackles.
Okay.
Wasting time feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
I think we've all been guilty of this at some point, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've all thrown ourselves a pity party or two.
Totally.
Morin uses a story about
Okay.
a young boy named Jack who breaks both his legs in an accident.
Oh, no.
His parents, naturally worried, end up
Right.
shielding him from
Yeah.
anything that might be difficult
Mhm.
or remind him of his limitations. They keep him home from school,
Okay.
focus on what he can't do,
Oh, wow.
and unintentionally cultivate this atmosphere of self-pity.
I see where this is going.
Yeah.
While their intentions are good,
Big of
they're
you.
actually making things worse for Jack in the long run.
Right.
It's like they're accidentally teaching him to be helpless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this story highlights how even well-intentioned
Yeah.
actions can backfire if they feed into
Yeah.
a pattern of self-pity. Morin dives into
Uh.
the psychology of why we do it. It's a defense mechanism.
Oh.
It offers a temporary escape
Yeah.
from having to face
Yeah.
difficult emotions or take responsibility for our situation.
It's easier to wallow in why me
Yeah.
than to actually confront the problem.
But here's the catch.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really important for you to understand.
Yeah.
That temporary relief comes at a cost. Self-pity can trap you
Yeah.
in a cycle of negativity,
Right.
making it harder to heal, grow, and
Well-
move forward.
So what are some of the specific ways self-pity can sabotage us?
Okay.
It's more than just feeling sad, right?
Right. One danger
Yeah.
is wasted time and energy.
Oh, for sure.
Imagine all the things you could accomplish if you weren't dwelling on what's wrong.
Right.
Self-pity also fuels negative emotions like sadness, anger, and resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And this negativity can become,
A self-fulfilling prophecy. If you constantly tell yourself you're a victim,
yeah,
you might start acting in ways that confirm that belief.
it's like you're creating a mental prison for yourself.
And here's another thing to consider.
Okay.
When you're consumed by self-pity, you tend to overlook the good things
Uh-huh.
in your life. It's like wearing a pair of glasses
Yeah.
that only lets you see the negative.
Oh, yeah.
And this negativity can damage your relationships.
Yeah.
People can only handle so much negativity
Yeah.
before they start to pull away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's exhausting to be around someone who's constantly focused on their own problems.
No, I don't want you to think that Morin is advocating
Okay.
for denying or suppressing difficult emotions. It's not about pretending everything's okay
Right, right.
when it's not. It's about recognizing when
Yeah.
self-pity has become a habit
Right.
that's preventing you from healing and moving forward.
So how do we break free from this self-pity trap?
Maureen shares a really powerful example from her own life.
Okay.
After her husband passed away,
Yeah.
she chose to go skydiving with his family on his birthday instead of having a pity party.
Whoa.
It became an empowering annual tradition,
Wow.
a way to celebrate his life
Okay.
in a way that felt authentic and meaningful.
That's a pretty incredible example
Right.
of turning grief into something
Uh-huh.
positive and action-oriented.
Yeah.
But for those of us who aren't ready to jump out of planes, what are some other ways to ditch the self-pity?
There are lots of things you can do.
Okay.
Volunteering is a great way to shift your focus outward
Uh-huh.
and connect with others.
Yeah.
Random acts of kindness can boost your mood
Okay.
and make you feel good about yourself. Even simple things like exercise
Yeah.
and getting outdoors can help lift your spirits.
It's about replacing those self-pitying thoughts and behaviors
Yeah,
with actions that make you feel empowered and capable.
exactly. And one of the most effective ways to combat self-pity
Okay. Is to cultivate gratitude.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on what you lack,
Uh-huh.
take time each day to appreciate the good things in your life.
But isn't there a danger in being overly positive? What about those times when you're facing genuine hardship
Okay, yeah.
and it feels impossible to find anything to be grateful for?
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
It's not about pretending everything is perfect
Right.
or ignoring legitimate pain. It's about shifting your perspective.
Right.
Even in the darkest of times,
Uh-huh.
there are often small glimmers of light. Maybe you're grateful for a supportive friend, a warm bed, or a delicious cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
The more you practice gratitude,
Okay.
the more you'll start to notice these small but meaningful things.
So it's about retraining your brain
Uh-huh.
to focus on the positive,
Yeah,
even when things are tough.
exactly.
Are there any inspiring examples?
Absolutely. Morin talks about
Right.
Laura Renan, a legally blind Olympic runner.
Wow.
She sees her vision loss as a gift.
Oh, that allows her to focus on her other senses
Okay.
and connect with the world
Yeah.
in a different way. Talk about turning a perceived negative into a strength.
That's incredibly inspiring. It shows how our mindset can completely change our experience. But I'm curious, what about those situations
Yeah.
where it feels impossible to find a silver lining?
Uh-huh.
Like in cases of
Yeah.
extreme hardship or injustice.
Morin brings up a truly powerful example
Okay.
of resilience in the face of unimaginable suffering. She talks about Jeremiah Denton, a Vietnam POW who endured years of torture and still maintained his composure and even gratitude.
Oh, wow.
He focused on the things he could control, like his attitude and his faith, and refused to let his captors break his spirit.
Wow, that's an incredible testament of the power of the human spirit.
It really is, and I think it highlights
Yeah.
something really important for you to understand.
Okay.
Giving up self-pity isn't about being stoic or denying difficult emotions. It's about choosing to focus your energy on what you can control
Right.
and moving forward with strength and grace.
So for you listening, think about a recent time when you felt sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
How did it feel? What were you focusing on? And most importantly, what could you have done differently?
Right.
What small step could you take to shift your mindset from self-pity to gratitude?
These are powerful questions
Yeah.
to reflect on because it's in that reflection that we can start to reclaim our power.
Which brings us to the next mentally strong habit,
Okay.
not giving away your power.
Yeah,
And this one is all about setting boundaries, isn't it?
that's right. And it can be a real game changer. But before we jump in, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
All right, so we're back and ready to tackle this next habit Maureen talks about, not giving away your power. I have a feeling this one is going to resonate with a lot of people because, let's be honest, haven't we all felt powerless at some point in our lives? Whether it's dealing with a difficult boss,
Oh, yeah.
a demanding family member,
Right.
or even just that inner critic
Uh-huh.
that seems to constantly undermine our confidence,
Yeah,
you know?
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's a common struggle. Morin uses the story of
Yeah.
Lauren, who is constantly being bossed around
Huh.
and emotionally manipulated by her
Right.
overbearing mother-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
It's a classic example of how we can unknowingly give others power over our emotions and well-being.
Okay, but it's not always about someone intentionally
Right.
trying to control us, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes it's just a clash of personalities or
Yeah.
different expectations.
The key takeaway here is that regardless of the other person's intentions,
Mm.
when we allow their actions or opinions to dictate our emotional state,
Mm-hmm.
we're essentially handing over our power.
Okay.
We're letting them control how we feel.
It's like giving them the remote control to our happiness.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think a lot of us do this without even realizing it.
That's why this habit is so important to unpack.
Yeah.
Morin explores the different reasons why we might give away our power.
Okay.
For some, it's a fear of confrontation.
Right.
They'd rather keep the peace than risk rocking the boat, even if it means sacrificing their own needs.
Okay.
For others, it stems from a deep-seated
Yeah.
need to please everyone.
Oh, yeah.
They're afraid of disapproval
Yeah.
or rejection, so they constantly try to adapt to what they think others want.
And then there's the issue of self-worth, right?
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Low self-worth can make it incredibly difficult to set healthy boundaries and stand up for yourself.
Right.
And the consequences of not doing so can be far-reaching. Think about Lauren. She's constantly on an emotional roller coaster.
Right.
Her mood dictated by her mother-in-law's whims. She's become dependent on her approval
Oh, wow.
and is terrified of doing anything that might upset her.
So she's essentially living her life on someone else's terms.
Exactly.
Right.
And this can lead to
Nice.
a whole cascade of problems. It can prevent you
Right.
from addressing real issues in your relationships because you're too afraid of conflict.
Right.
It can make you overly sensitive to criticism
Yeah.
because you're constantly seeking validation from others.
Okay.
And it can even hold you back
Wow.
from pursuing your own goals and dreams
Well, yeah.
because you're too worried about what others will think.
So how do we reclaim that power? How do we stop giving others so much control over our lives?
It starts with awareness.
Okay.
The first step is to identify
Yeah,
the
yeah.
power drainers in your life.
Okay.
Who are the people
Right.
or situations that consistently leave you feeling depleted, frustrated, or resentful?
Once you know who they are, what's next?
Okay.
Do you just cut those people out of your life completely?
Not necessarily. It's not always about ending relationships.
Okay.
Sometimes it's about changing the dynamics within those relationships.
Right.
And that requires setting boundaries.
But boundaries can be tricky, especially if you're not used to asserting yourself.
Right.
Where do you even begin?
Morin suggests starting small.
Okay.
It could be something as simple as saying no to a request that you don't feel comfortable with,
Right.
or expressing your opinion, even if it differs from the other person's.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that you have a choice in how you respond.
So it's about shifting from a passive role to an active role
Exactly.
in your own life.
And this also involves changing the way you think and talk about your experiences.
Okay.
Instead of saying, he makes me mad, try saying, his behavior is frustrating.
Okay.
It seems like a small change,
Yeah.
but it's a powerful shift in perspective.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of your own feelings and reactions.
Right.
Rather than blaming others for how you feel.
That's right. It's about recognizing that you have agency, even in situations where you might feel powerless.
Right.
Now, I know what you might be thinking.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Right.
What about those times when you're in the heat of the moment?
Oh, yeah.
And emotions are running high. It's hard to stay
Right.
calm and rational when someone is pushing your buttons.
That's where those coping techniques come in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Morin provides some really practical tips for staying grounded
Right.
when things get heated.
Yeah.
Taking a few deep breaths
Yeah.
can help slow down your heart rate and calm your nervous system.
Okay.
Removing yourself from the situation, even for a few minutes,
Yeah.
can give you time to cool down and gather your thoughts. And sometimes a simple distraction technique like listening to music or focusing on a pleasant memory can help you regain your composure.
So it's about having a toolbox of strategies you can use to manage your emotional responses. But what about the power of forgiveness?
Right.
Does Morin address that?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Forgiveness plays a huge role
Okay.
in reclaiming your power. Morin shares the incredible story of Stephen McDonald, a paralyzed police officer
Oh, wow.
who forgave the young man who shot him, leaving him permanently disabled. His story is a powerful testament to
Yeah.
the transformative power of forgiveness, even in the face of unimaginable pain and suffering.
Wow. That's a truly remarkable example. It shows that forgiveness is not about condoning the other person's actions. It's about releasing yourself
Exactly.
from the burden of anger and resentment.
And that's a powerful act of self-care.
Wow.
Now, I know forgiveness can be a complex and challenging process, especially in cases of serious harm. But even if you're not ready to fully forgive someone,
Right.
you can still work on letting go of the anger that's weighing you down.
It's about recognizing that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that forgiveness is ultimately about freeing yourself.
Yeah.
And here's another important point Morin makes.
Okay.
It's about evaluating feedback critically,
Right.
not letting one opinion, especially if it comes from an unreliable source,
Huh.
define you.
That's so important in today's world,
Right?
where we're constantly bombarded with opinions and judgments from all directions,
Yes,
especially on social media.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Morin uses the example of Madonna's early rejection letter.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine if she had let that
Yeah.
one negative opinion derail her entire career?
Oh, my gosh.
We all face criticism, but it's about learning to
Yeah.
discern what's valuable and what's just noise.
So it's about choosing which feedback
Yeah.
to internalize
Uh-huh.
and which to simply let roll off your back.
Right. It's about remembering that everyone is entitled to their opinion, but that doesn't mean we have to take it personally or let it dictate our actions.
And this applies to all areas of our lives, right?
Absolutely.
Not just our careers.
Morin emphasizes the importance of recognizing our choices,
Okay.
even in situations where we might feel stuck or trapped, like in a job we hate.
She talks about Oprah Winfrey's
Uh-huh.
extraordinary journey,
Right.
rising from poverty and abuse
Yeah.
to become one of the most powerful and influential women in the world.
Oprah's story is a testament to the fact that
Yeah.
even when life deals you a difficult hand,
Yeah.
you still have the power to choose how you respond.
So for you listening, think about
Yeah.
the areas in your life where you might be giving away your power.
Mm-hmm.
Who or what is holding you back
Right.
from feeling truly free and empowered?
It might be a relationship, a job, a negative thought pattern, or even a past experience you haven't been able to let go of.
And ask yourself, what's one small step I can take to reclaim my power in this situation?
Remember, it's a process,
Yeah.
not a one-time event.
Right?
But every step you take towards reclaiming your power
Right.
will bring you closer to living a more authentic and fulfilling life.
Which brings us to the third mentally strong habit, not shying away from change.
Change.
Yeah.
That inevitable yet often uncomfortable part of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one that a lot of us struggle with.
For sure.
But isn't change a good thing? It's how we grow and evolve.
In theory, yes.
Okay.
But in practice, change can be scary.
Right.
It often involves stepping outside of our comfort zones,
Yeah.
facing the unknown,
Right.
and risking failure. And that can be a major deterrent, even when we know logically that change is needed.
Maureen uses the story of Richard,
Mm-hmm.
a man struggling to manage his diabetes, to illustrate how fear and discomfort can make us resist change, even when it's clearly in our best interest.
Richard knows he needs to make changes to his diet and lifestyle,
Right.
but he's overwhelmed by the thought of it.
Oh, wow.
He's afraid of failing. He's worried about what his friends and family will think.
Right.
And he's attached to his old habits, even though they're harming his health.
I think we can all relate
Yeah.
to that feeling of being stuck, even when we know logically that change is needed. So how do we overcome this resistance to change?
Right.
Where do we even begin?
Morin breaks down the different types of change we might encounter in life because understanding the nature of the change
Right.
can be helpful in overcoming our resistance to it. She points out that some changes are all or nothing,
Right.
like having a child or getting married. These major life transitions often come with a lot of emotional upheaval
Right.
and require significant adjustments.
But not all changes are so dramatic, right?
Right. Some changes are more gradual, like developing a new skill or changing a habit. And then there are those subtle internal shifts
Okay.
in our thoughts and beliefs,
Yeah.
which can be just as impactful as external changes.
So there's a whole spectrum of change.
Right.
And our readiness for it might depend on
Yeah.
the type of change and our own personal experiences.
Exactly. And Morin uses
Okay.
the 5 stages of change,
Okay.
from pre-contemplation to maintenance, to help us understand
Care.
where we might be in relation to
Okay.
a desired change.
Can you break down those stages for us? Because I think having a framework
Absolutely.
can make the process of change feel less overwhelming.
In the pre-contemplation stage,
Okay.
you're not even thinking about change. You might not be aware of
Yeah.
the problem, or you might be in denial about the need for change.
It's like that saying, you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at some point, you might move into the contemplation stage.
Okay.
You start to become aware
Right?
of the need for change,
Yeah.
but you're still ambivalent about it.
Okay.
You weigh the pros and cons, and
Right.
you might feel stuck in this back and forth for a while.
It's that should I stay or should I go dilemma.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But eventually, if you decide to move forward,
Okay.
you enter the preparation stage. You start making plans, gathering information,
Yeah.
and setting goals.
So you're mentally and emotionally preparing yourself for the change.
Right.
Yeah.
And then comes the action stage,
Okay.
where you actually start making changes. This is where you put your plan into action
Right.
and start taking concrete steps towards your goal.
This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
And finally,
Okay.
you reach the maintenance stage. This is where you work on sustaining
Okay.
the changes you've made and preventing relapse.
So it's a continuous process, not a one-and-done deal.
Exactly. And it's important to remember
Yeah.
that you might cycle through these stages multiple times
Uh-huh.
before you successfully
Yeah.
make a lasting change.
That's reassuring to hear.
right.
It means that even if you stumble or backslide, you haven't failed.
Yeah,
You can always pick yourself up and try again.
absolutely. It's all part of the process.
Yeah.
And a big part of navigating this process successfully
Okay.
is understanding the fears that might be holding you back.
Because fear can be a major obstacle to change, can't it?
Absolutely. We might fear the unknown. We might fear discomfort.
Right.
We might fear failure.
Right.
Or we might even fear the grief that can come with letting go of something familiar.
Morin uses the example of Andrew,
Right.
who is stuck in a dead-end job,
Yeah.
but is terrified of leaving.
Right.
Yeah.
He's miserable
Mhm.
in his current job.
Right.
But the thought of starting over,
Yeah.
facing rejection,
Right.
and potentially failing
Uh-huh.
fills him with dread. He's clinging to the familiar,
Yeah.
even though it's making him unhappy.
It's that classic better the devil you know mentality.
Exactly. But Morin points out
Yeah.
that there's a hidden cost to staying stuck.
There's one.
It's not just about missing out on potential opportunities. It's also about the emotional toll it takes.
What do you mean?
When you avoid change,
Mm-hmm.
you're essentially choosing to stay in a state of discomfort, boredom, or even misery.
Yeah.
You might feel trapped, unfulfilled, or resentful.
Uh-huh.
And this can lead to a whole host of problems,
Yeah.
from low self-esteem to strained relationships.
So it's not just about
Mhm.
what you might gain by making a change.
Right.
It's also about what you might lose by staying stuck.
That's a great way to put it. And
Yeah.
Morin highlights some pretty stark consequences of
Yeah.
avoiding change.
Yeah.
You might stay stuck in a rut, feeling bored and uninspired.
Mm-hmm.
You might miss out on incredible opportunities
Yeah.
for growth and fulfillment.
Okay.
You might struggle with unresolved problems
Right.
that continue to weigh you down.
Uh-huh.
And you might even stunt your personal growth, preventing yourself from reaching your full potential.
It paints a pretty compelling picture of why embracing change is so important.
Uh-huh.
But what about those times when change is thrust upon us?
Okay, yeah.
When it's not a choice, but something we're forced to deal with?
That's where the real test of mental strength comes in.
Okay.
Morin shares a truly inspiring story
Uh-huh.
about Mary Deming,
Okay.
a teacher who dedicated herself to cancer fundraising after losing her mother to the
Uh-huh.
disease. And then, just a few years later,
Oh, wow.
she was hit by a car while riding her bike and suffered a traumatic brain injury.
Wow. Talk about facing unimaginable challenges.
And it would have been understandable
Right.
for her to give up,
Yeah.
to wallow in self-pity, or to become consumed by fear and anger. But Mary chose a different path.
Wow.
She refused to let these setbacks define her. She embraced the changes that were forced upon her and found ways to adapt and thrive.
Her story is a testament to
Yeah.
the incredible resilience of the human spirit. But for those of us who are struggling to embrace change,
Right.
even when it's a choice,
Yeah.
what practical advice does Morin offer?
She provides a ton of helpful tips.
Okay.
One of the simplest but most effective
Yeah.
is to make a list of the pros and cons of
Sure.
making the change.
Okay.
This can help you weigh the potential benefits
Uh-huh.
against the potential risks
Right?
and make a more informed decision.
It's about bringing clarity to the situation
Exactly.
and moving beyond those
Yeah.
initial feelings of fear and uncertainty.
And she also suggests
Okay.
conducting behavioral experiments.
Okay.
This involves trying out
Yeah.
the change on a small scale
Yeah.
before fully committing to it.
So it's like dipping your toes in the water before diving in head first.
Right. It allows you to experience the change
Uh-huh.
in a controlled environment and gather data on
Okay.
how it feels and what
Yeah.
the potential consequences might be.
That's a great way to reduce the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
But what about the emotional side of change?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's not
Yeah.
the practical aspects
Right.
that hold us back.
Yeah.
It's the emotional baggage
Right.
we're carrying.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Moranin emphasizes
Okay.
the importance of becoming aware of
Uh-huh.
the emotions that are
Yeah.
driving your resistance.
Mhm.
Are you afraid of failure? Are you worried about
Right.
what others will think? Are you grieving the loss of something familiar?
Once you identify those emotions, then what?
Okay.
Did you just try to ignore them?
It's not about ignoring them. It's about acknowledging them, understanding where they're coming from, and then challenging them.
So it's about bringing a sense of
Uh-huh.
mindfulness
Yeah.
and self-compassion to the process of change.
Exactly. And Morin also provides a really helpful framework for
Yeah.
successfully implementing change.
Yeah.
She suggests setting 30-day goals because a shorter time frame can feel less daunting
Right.
than trying to tackle a massive long-term goal.
That makes sense. It's about breaking down those big, overwhelming
Uh-huh.
changes
Yeah.
into smaller, more manageable steps.
And she also emphasizes
Yeah.
the importance of breaking down those 30-day goals
Right.
into even smaller
Yeah.
daily actions.
Okay.
This helps you create momentum and build consistency.
So instead of saying, I'm going to start exercising more,
Uh-huh.
you might say, I'm going to walk for 30 minutes every day after lunch.
Exactly. It's about creating specific, actionable steps that you can easily incorporate into your daily routine.
But what about those
Mm.
inevitable obstacles
Right.
that pop up?
Yeah.
How do you stay motivated when you
Yeah.
encounter setbacks or challenges?
Moran suggests anticipating obstacles in advance
Right?
and developing a plan for how you'll deal with them.
Okay.
This could involve identifying potential triggers, brainstorming solutions,
Yeah.
or seeking support from others.
That's about being proactive
Yes.
rather than reactive.
Right.
Yeah.
And another key element is accountability.
Okay.
This could involve sharing your goals with a friend, joining a support group,
Yeah.
or hiring a coach.
Having someone to cheer you on
Uh-huh.
and hold you accountable
Right.
can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And finally, Marin stresses
Okay.
the importance of monitoring your progress. This could involve
Okay.
tracking your daily actions,
Uh-huh.
journaling about your experiences, or reflecting on your wins and challenges at the
Ah.
end of each week.
This helps you stay on track. Identify areas where you might need to adjust your approach
Exactly.
and celebrate your successes along the way.
And perhaps most importantly, Morin reminds us
Okay.
that our thoughts can either sabotage and support
Right.
our efforts to change.
What do you mean?
We all have those limiting beliefs that can hold us back.
Yeah.
Things like, this will never work.
Right.
Or I'm not good at change. Or I'm too old to start something new.
It's like we're our own worst enemies sometimes.
Right. But the good news is
Yeah.
that we have the power to challenge those negative thoughts.
Right.
And replace them with more realistic and empowering beliefs.
So it's about recognizing
Yeah.
that our thoughts are not facts.
Exactly.
They're just thoughts, and we can choose to believe them or not.
And the more we practice challenging our negative thoughts, the weaker they become.
So for you listening, what change have you been putting off?
Yeah.
Maybe it's starting that new exercise routine, having that difficult conversation, or finally tackling that clutter in your basement.
What's one small action
Yeah.
you can take today
Yeah,
to move towards that change? Remember, even the smallest step in the right direction
right.
is still progress.
Mhm.
And as you start to embrace change, you might be surprised at how much power and freedom you reclaim in the process.
And that brings us back to the
Yeah.
interconnectedness we
Yeah.
talked about earlier.
Huh.
These 3 habits.
Yeah.
Ditching self-pity,
Yeah.
not giving away your power,
Right.
and embracing change
Right.
are all intertwined.
They are.
When you stop feeling sorry for yourself,
Uh-huh.
you reclaim your power. And with that power,
Right.
you're better equipped to face your fears
Yeah.
and embrace change.
It's like a chain reaction of
Yeah.
positive growth.
That's a great way to put it. It's a reminder
Mm-hmm.
that personal growth is a
Yeah.
holistic process.
Right.
These habits aren't isolated.
Mm-hmm.
They work together to create
Yeah.
a more resilient and empowered you.
And that's why it can be so helpful to
Yeah.
have a framework like this
Mm-hmm.
to understand the underlying patterns
Yeah.
that might be holding you back.
Because once you see the patterns, you can start to shift them.
Precisely. Now remember, we've only just scratched the surface here.
Right.
Morin's book goes on to explore 10 more habits that mentally strong people avoid.
Okay.
Things like dwelling on the past,
Mm-hmm.
resenting other people's success,
Okay.
giving up after failure,
Right.
fearing alone time,
Okay.
feeling the world owes you something,
Right.
expecting immediate results.
It's like she's giving you a mental detox.
Yeah.
Helping you clear out all those unhelpful habits that are cluttering up your mind
Uh-huh.
and preventing you from reaching your full potential.
That's a great analogy. And while we can't cover all 13 habits in this deep dive,
Right.
we highly encourage you to check out the book and continue
Yeah.
exploring these concepts on your own. It's a journey, not a destination.
And speaking of the journey, let's take a moment to recap the 3 habits we've unpacked today.
Okay.
First, we talked about the importance of ditching self-pity
Uh-huh.
and replacing it with gratitude.
Right.
Instead of dwelling on what's wrong, focus on what's right. Even in the midst of challenges,
Yeah,
there's always something to be grateful for.
absolutely.
Then we explored the power of retaining your power by setting healthy boundaries.
Uh-huh.
Remember, you have a choice in how you respond to other people and situations.
You do.
Don't give away your power by letting others dictate your emotions.
Right?
And finally, we discussed the transformative power of embracing change.
Yes,
Change can be scary,
it can.
but it's also an opportunity for growth, learning, and expansion.
Uh-huh.
Instead of resisting change,
Mhm.
try to see it as an adventure.
And remember, building mental strength is not about becoming some kind of superhuman
Right.
who never feels negative emotions or experiences setbacks.
Right.
It's about developing the tools and skills you need to navigate
Yeah.
life's challenges with resilience, grace, and a positive outlook.
It's about becoming the best version of yourself.
Exactly. And it's a journey that's worth taking.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a question to ponder.
Okay.
Think about a recent challenge you've faced
Uh-huh.
or a change you've been putting off.
Okay.
If you were to approach it from a position of mental strength,
Yeah.
what would you do differently? What small step can you take today to start building those mental muscles and creating a more empowered and fulfilling life?
Remember, you have the power within you to create the life you want.
Yeah.
It starts with a choice. And we're here to support you every step of the way.
Until next time, fellow deep divers, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.